look at it as a cost. Look at it as an investment on your engagement, on your retention, as I was saying, and potentially on your attraction. That's something we are selling to our candidates. And candidates are like, oh, wow. And again, not just because they want to build family. Some of them have their family, or some of them don't want to build a family. But when you have such a powerful message, people say, wow, it has to be a good enough company. You know, if they do that, it can't be that bad.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the HR Leaders Podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by Christelle Beneteau, who's the Chief HR Officer at Ferring Pharmaceuticals. During the episode, Christelle shares how Ferring have designed and implemented a comprehensive and inclusive global family benefits package. She talks about the introduction of a 26-week global minimum standard for paid parental leave for both birthing parents and non-birthing parents, how they're actually providing unlimited financial support for fertility benefits, ensuring accessible care for all employees, the key factors to consider when developing and executing a global wellbeing strategy, and the essential technology partners that are actually enabling their successful wellbeing initiatives. As always, before we jump into the video, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. With that being said, let's jump in. Christelle, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well. And yourself?
Well, I'm good. Well, it's good to see CHRO smiling. So that's a good thing.
That's part of the job profile. We have a mask, you know.
Is that what it is?
To the office.
Are you ever allowed
no.
to? I suppose there's like some sort of indirect pressure, isn't there? Like HR is always supposed to be okay. and
they look at your face. If you're not smiling, they're worried. But we're having the fun part, you know, all about the business and the people. Yeah. So it's always fun in HR.
No, of course. How's family? How's everyone?
Very good. You know, 3 young kids and a working husband, so they're all busy, but that's good. Good work-life balance.
Good. That's all. I'm glad you.
Work-life integration.
Integration, yeah, exactly. It's an interesting one. I can barely deal with 1 kid. My daughter's 4, and my wife and I both work, so I don't even know how you do it with 3 because I don't know.
That's my saddest part of me. I think I like to. I like pain, but no, it's great. You know what? Motherhood is the best, or parenthood is the best lesson for leadership.
Yeah.
You know, treat your leaders like your kids, and you're nearly there.
What would you say is the biggest lessons you have learned from your kids that you've kind of taken into the workplace?
Patience, potentially, you know, and tantrum. Tantrum in the boardroom are different, but they're still tantrums. So,
patience is definitely one as a parent, right? I feel like for me, that's one of the things I had to work on with Robin is be very patient.
And Chris, I was not born with it. Patience is a virtue I haven't been blessed with. So I'm still learning every day, you know?
Yeah. We learn so much from our kids, right? I feel like Robin teaches me more than I teach her as well. Yeah. Like, I love the fact that
they put the mirror up, you know, there's no pretense with them. They put that mirror up and you're right in your face. And you're like, oh dear. Oh. Yeah. And they're right most of the time.
I know, unfortunately. I love with Robin at the moment.
Don't tell them that.
No, I know, yeah. I love at the moment with Robin, like she hasn't developed any sort of fear yet. So everything is a yes. Everything is a jump in the deep end. Everything is, I'll try it. She's not worried about failure. She's not worried about what's someone going to think. She's just, I love it as kids. They're just free to just try, experiment.
And the lack of filter as well. They tell you things, when they say, we have a saying in French, they say the truth come out of the children's mouth. Yeah. And sometimes like, ouch. I can't even react because that was true, but yes. Yeah. So
love it. Love it. What's top of mind for you? What obviously it's been a crazy few years. Still is, to be honest. Environment. What's really top of mind for you right now?
A lot of things. At work anyway, I hope I won't bore you with the details, but at work, so I joined the company 2 years ago. We've got some very exciting, we have a lot of highs and a few lows. And right now we've just had 2 outstanding approvals from the FDA on 2 first-in-class drugs. So as you can imagine, we're 2 billion company, 2.2 billion, so fairly modest. So it's huge for us, which is a great problem to have.
Good problem to have.
So from an HR standpoint, from a business, a lot of challenges and a lot of investment, and we need to prepare. We've launched one, we're preparing to launch the other. So from a people standpoint, you can imagine the needs there, what we need to bring the right people, develop them, and it's a completely changed mindset. Very strong. We've been growing significantly in terms of volume, but not necessarily in terms of profit. So we've been doing life cycle management. Now it's new products. So fascinating from a people skill set standpoint, cultural standpoint, and we're right in the middle of it. So it would be hard to identify one or two. It's all at the same time, but that's why I love it. And in some way, put HR or our function, human resources, right in the center of it. So that's what I love the most.
Love it. What does that mean in terms of hiring? You get to 2 drugs approved. What does that look like from your hiring? Are you increasing your headcount quite significantly because of those?
So at the moment, that's a good question. So at the moment, these 2 drugs are mainly launched. They're only launched in the US. Because they've been approved first by the FDA in the US. So we've ramped up. Of course, you prepare a few months before.
Of course,
you're hoping you'll get approved. So we ramped up on the sales force, but not just medical, the payers. Even some support functions, or enabling functions. So there's been a lot of hiring, but a lot of training as well. A lot of converting skill sets. So people we have already, talent that we're moving them. It's a completely different therapeutic area. So new skill set, people that have been working with us for a long time, great salespeople, but they never launched a product. So it's different skill set, different focus. We have had to build up some global team, but also focusing on the US because we're launching in the US, but we're also planning the ex-US
It's launch. A lot to think about.
It's hiring, training, converting. You name it, we have it right now. So it's it sounds like chaos. But with kind of structured chaos,
organized chaos. Yeah.
Well, exactly. That's what innovation is.
It's true. Exactly. Well, look, with so much going on internally and also externally, there's a lot going on. I'm sure well-being is something of a focus for you and the team. Yeah. Could you kind of walk us through the work that you're doing there?
Yeah. So as you said, I think we came out of COVID, and some people will even say we're right in it, or it's less restriction, but it's still the aftermath. We've had the geopolitical situation last year that didn't help, economical situation with inflation, and we are operating we're selling a product in over 100 countries. We're operating in 55 countries. So just how people are perceiving all of those elements are very, very different. You have countries with 20+% inflation rate, some a bit more modest, but it's huge. You change everywhere. So and that's externally and internally. As I said, we had some challenges that we faced, that we recovered. We have those exciting opportunity, but it put a lot of pressure on our employees. We realize, like anyone, it's not just Ferring. All companies understand the importance of well-being. And as we all know in HR or even outside of HR, to be a great place to work, we need to look at well-being of people at work, at home. So, it's like learning and development is personal growth and professional growth. So that's an area where we spend a lot of time. Maybe we've done like all other companies on flexible working arrangement, not just, remote or virtual or physical, but how do you adapt to that? So we are not best in class, so I'm not going to go too much into there. I think we've done what a lot of other people are doing. The one element I'm quite proud of, and we are all proud in here, is what we're doing. We have a huge program, and we call it Building Family at Ferring. So Ferring is a market leader in reproductive medicine and maternal health. So you would expect that we do something for our employees. We are advocating people to have a family, and we're working with some industries, to include that in their benefits. So we have to lead by example. Leadership is not just about market share. They say great leaders are people that others follow. So we want other companies to follow us in that journey. And we have two huge pillars in that program. The first one is we launched it last year. We are offering for all our employees, regardless of where they are, regardless of who they love, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, age, we're offering a full support in their family building journey, whether it's IVF, whether it's sperm donor, egg donor, surrogacy, adoption, financial support. So we pay for it, which is a huge amount in some countries, in particular in some countries where national health is not covering it, and emotional support. So we give them people time off. We accommodate the workplace to help them. That's one key pillar. And the second, which I'm not sure what I'm the proudest of, definitely one unique for big organizations like ourselves. We have a 6 months parental leave. So that's the birthing and a non-birthing parent. So that's huge, which means that if you have a baby or if you adopt at Ferring, you will get 6 months to really create that link with your new joiner in the family, whether you're the physical birthing parent or not.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that's huge. That's huge. And that has generated, as you can imagine, a lot of positive engagement with our employees.
Yeah. We were just talking about being parents at the beginning of the episode. And
exactly,
I can't imagine not having that time with Robin looking back. I was quite lucky that I run my own business, so I can be flexible and do that. And we were financially lucky and fortunate to be in a position that my wife took a whole year off. And, she wasn't getting paid by our company, by the way, for that year off. But financially, we were very lucky that we could afford to do that as well. And now I look back, I'm so happy. And I know we speak about it all the time, and she speaks about how much she loved having that time to spend with Robin. So it's incredible that you've done that.
And maybe I should have precise. It's paid parental leave.
I knew yours was paid.
I just wanted to make it.
I know yours was paid. I think Natasha had I think she had 3 months paid. Yeah. My wife had 3 months paid, and then the rest we just, obviously we just forego that.
But I had twins. I had I had the normal, but my husband had 2 days. And I think in some countries, it's still nothing. It's 1 day. And even in those countries that were 1 day, we're offering 6 months. So it's interesting because we are facing some cultural challenge. Even leaders feel not comfortable taking those 6 months.
Interesting.
But we have a lot of male leaders as well as female leaders, and of a certain age that really proactively say, look, I've got 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids. I had half a day, I had 1 day, I couldn't bond. And now I'm bonding with my grandchildren the way I haven't bonded with my children. And I mean, we're talking about well-being, but we can talk about diversity and inclusion. If we want more diversity, you have to do that. And we have had some really great testimonial from fathers who come back and they say, look, I had my first child, I didn't have that. My second, I was able to share with my wife the burden, even at home. And
that too, that's a good point.
Complete different dynamics. Yeah, and it's not just at work. Again, employer of choice help employees at home and at work. And that's what, you can't go in people's home, but at least if you give them the money and the time to help through that journey. Yeah.
How do you go about sharing those stories? Just out of curiosity. Is it like internal in like your own Slack channels, or just an interesting question, because I think it's important.
It's very interesting, and I've had that conversation with our head of communication. Ferring is the best kept secret, I believe, and you think you're selling it now, but when I joined, I didn't know them. I read on paper, I said, oh, that's good. And when I joined, I realized some of the benefits. And the biggest feedback we get from people who join us, they said, oh, wow, it's actually even better than I thought. And we're not perfect, no company is. So there's loads of frustration and loads of moments of banging my head against the wall, So we're not perfect, but we're not very good at promoting ourselves. So to your question, I don't think we're selling that well enough. We've done LinkedIn posts. Of course, we have a new employee value proposition. We're discussing in forum. I mean, our president was in Davos a few weeks ago, and that got some interest. And people say, oh, wow, I didn't even realize. Have you just launched it? It's 12 months now. So we need to do a lot more. And, even if that podcast can help and
yeah.
But, our owners is like, well, I don't want to tell everyone we're great. We're just going to be great and people will know. So I hear it and I respect it. So.
Employees share that. Like if you, again, it's like the best marketing is the feedback from your employees that, to their friends, to their network, etc. But I mean, how are you sharing those stories internally though? In terms of those leaders saying, hey, I've just come back. It's been amazing. How are you sharing that internally?
So we're trying, we are also using testimonial because in addition to offering or supporting our employees, for their family building journey, the positive side effect, which I should pretend we had planned, but we hadn't really.
You're being honest. It's good. You're being honest.
I'll be honest. It's only you and I, right? Yeah. So, but the very positive side effect is because we have all of those leaders, managers at any level, and I've got loads of examples of very senior leaders, and I'm making sure the senior leaders are taking their BFF, building family at Ferring leave, because they are leading by example, and we've had good example. So basically, because of those, that has given opportunity for internal talent to go into positions they wouldn't have got. So it's 6. Sometimes people say, I'll take another 3 months, I won't be paid. But those 6 months where we had people that could not relocate, but say, look, you know what, for 6 months, you either come or you do it remote, or it's a step up that we might, it's talent. It's like, well, do we take a risk? I'm like, it's only 6 months, what can happen? Mm-hmm. And we've had really successful developmental opportunities that came out of it. So actually, helping our employees to build a family journey, hopefully helping the world to build a more diverse population. And people were opening their mind, even in country where culture are a bit less open, should I say, to this approach. In addition, the positive side effect of the whole thing has been an increase on developmental opportunity. So that actually, very openly, Chris, I'm promoting that part a lot more internally because I think people know about the BFF now. Sure. Internally, they talk about it. But what people don't get, and now they're starting, we had our talent review recently, and out of the senior talent review, 4 or 5 moves were made thanks to those parental leave opportunity. And that, I'm telling you, we had a town hall yesterday and we have videos, short clips to remind people.
So you include those type of things during the town halls, for example. Okay, great.
As well. And we ask our people for testimonials. Some people on LinkedIn, not enough, but we don't want to, people don't necessarily want to expose themselves publicly to, but yeah.
Love it. This all sounds amazing, but there is a cost attached, right, to that. And especially, or on both sides, right? So how did you, I'm sure many leaders are listening being like, we would love to have that at my company as well. How did you overcome those challenges? Let's start with the first part, like when you spoke around fertility, IVF, etc. As you mentioned, some countries, you've got national healthcare, others you don't. How did you, are you working with a partner on that? Are you doing that internally? How's that work? Yeah.
So for that fertility and the financial piece and even the emotional piece of it, it's outsourced because also we want to respect people's privacy. Some people might not feel comfortable, although we are really creating at Ferring that family, the open, and people are talking more and more around, I've had fertility treatment fertility issues. Mm-hmm. In my previous employers, I would not have dared discussing it. But here, that's our business, So if we're not open about it and tolerating it and inclusive about it, then shame on us. So, but we still want to keep privacy. So we are partnering with Carrot globally and Progeny in the US. And basically people will go, our employees have all the contact detail, they deal directly with those external. So we ensure that we are legally compliant. If we go to surrogacy, we're not being exposed. We're working with or our employees are working with hospital or agencies or organizations that are well overboard. So that's outsourced. We pay for it, so we can go into the cost later. But all of that piece, we are partnering with global providers. It's too complicated, and for people who want to do that, we've used Carrot and Progeny. There are others, so I'm not.
Underneath Carrot and Progeny, they have multiple services underneath those umbrellas.
Yes.
Okay.
You call them and they direct you to loads of. It could be psychological support. It could be physical need. Whatever it is, because we have a long list of offering in there. They cover.
Okay.
And we have that's something that very few people did, but our president who's right behind it, and I'll answer the part of your questions, how did you get it approved?
Yeah.
I think our whole executive committee, our whole president fully behind it. And we've even went for, there's no limit. So you could have 4, 5, 6 surrogacy, which is extremely expensive. So we might review later, but at the moment,
I was about to ask you that.
If we want to be the leader, it's uncapped.
Really? Wow.
People who can't afford it, they could cap it. I mean, you don't need to go all the way where we are.
I get it.
I think for a company who wants to look at it, there is a cost, significant cost. But if they can't afford that full cost, they can start the journey somewhere, and they can still partner with external suppliers or providers and give them a different brief. But they can still start the journey, not because you can't get all the way there. Even starting that journey, I think it sends a very positive message to the employees and our engagement, our retention. I've got 4 or 5 employees say, you know what, Christelle, I will stay. And some out of age, should I say, but I said, I'm so proud of what we're doing. I think this, for me, that's one of the reasons I'm staying. So it's well-being, it's engagement, it's also part of the retention, I believe. And put a cost on retention. I'm putting my CFO hat on. The negotiation that we had to do a little bit to justify the cost of retention and engagement.
I was just thinking that
number of it.
Yeah, if you look at that cost, I'm sure it'll outweigh the cost. Yeah, exactly. The turnover cost, right? If you measured that. As well. Wow, that's.
But to answer the second part of your question, Chris, there is a cost for sure. What we've done, and as I said, the president has been very, very supportive. I've got to give him all of the credit. I mean, the team behind it, a cross-functional team led by HR and finance and loads of other functions, have helped driven that. I don't want to take anything away from them because it was outstanding, but without the support of our president, who our original brief was even lower, and he said, well, what would take us to be leaders? Well, 6 months. Okay, go for it. And it was the easiest sell at the executive team meeting.
Wow.
It was the easiest sell at the board. There's a cost, and we've decided to centralize that cost because for those who want to do it, if you leave it with a country, if it's a G&A cost, for the local, you give those who are already reluctant for doing it from a cultural standpoint, they will hide behind the cost. I'd love to do it. I can't afford it. So we wanted to remove that barrier. So if you're not doing it now, I'm sorry, you have no excuse. You don't have the excuse of the money because we're paying for it.
Yeah.
But there's a cost. There's surely a cost that we ring fest. So.
Yeah, no, I love that. No, I appreciate your honesty about that. Like a reason I ask those questions is a lot of the leaders I speak to, they also want to do a lot of work around well-being, but it's so much noise as well. And there's so many different providers. What made you choose? You said Carrot, right? And then the other one, and the other one's called?
Progeny. So basically Progeny, the US team, the organization was ahead of, because it's a global program, what I mentioned. So we're forcing it. On a flexible working arrangement with defined guidelines, and each market could adapt. This one was imposed. We're not dictating, very, very decentralized in many ways, but that one was, this is the minimum requirement. around the world. Some countries were already above. So if some countries were already doing it, we're not lowering these benefits. We're just bringing it up. The US was already working with Progeny to some extent. It wasn't as generous to our employees, so we topped up, but they were already having something that worked and worked really well. We looked at loads of different providers, and there are others out there for sure. Carrot is not the only one. Many reasons to go, not just based on price. I think for us, we needed to have someone that was truly global. So also it depends on organization that might be more regional
Sure.
or
So you
local.
needed someone to offer
then,
you offer it
maybe
globally.
Carrot might not be the most cost effective or efficient way, but it was a global providers, extremely ethical, very able to absorb the volume of demand because
Sure.
we predicted how many that would be, and loads of other criteria. But I'd say that would be the main ones.
Yeah, it's important to ask those questions. And what does the user experience look like? Because I think some of the programs that I've seen, they've put all this time and investment in, but where they fail is actually the execution of the employee experience of how they even use the app platforms and the app. Sometimes it's hidden away in the intranet somewhere and people don't even know it exists. They don't even know they have all of these amazing things. So what does the employee experience look like? Where does that live for them? How do they access these tools?
So it's within the HR reward or benefits. First, it's a key benefit. So it's under my team. So my team, someone in my team is managing that. So we launched it at a global town hall. Mm-hmm. That made a lot of noise internally, and we announced it months before we were able to properly implement it. But we wanted to have the leadership position. So we wanted to announce it, and also so that people could plan, but because it was taking a few months, but we didn't want to delay announcing, and we had some buffer to make sure people got pregnant, didn't miss because of these few months. The implementation team worked extremely hard to do it all in 4 months between we announced.
4 months.
We decided
wow.
to
That's not a lot of time.
That's
not a lot of time.
No, I've got a great team. I tell you.
What would you say is the biggest challenge?
CHRO.
What's the biggest challenge you think they had to overcome? What would you say in terms of implementation?
It's the complexity of the implementation, not just on the fertility piece, because the Carrot Progeny piece, that's easy. And I don't want to underestimate the work done by procurement and some of the HR team. And so that has to be done, but that's the easier part. The most difficult is we operate in 55 countries, different labor law, different system. How do you implement from a system point of view, from a regulation point of view? As I said, in some countries, the man had 0 or 1 day, or the birthing parent, tried to be gender neutral. The birthing parent had 2 weeks is paid by the government. It's not. So this is at a local level. This is extremely complex.
Yeah.
So we work very closely with the HR community to really help them through that, because it sounds easy. And the executive team said, that's easy. It, press the button tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, guys, that's not how it's like. So if you talk about cost, we had 2 dedicated resources also to help us, because you need to remove as much as you can the burden from the local organization, HR organization, because they had day jobs.
Yeah.
And I mentioned the challenging environment. We are positively challenging, but still challenging. You add that on top. So I think something that we did well, based on bad experience, we learned from our mistakes in the past, is allocating enough resource pre-implementation, because if not, you might take the cost, the burden of the implementation. If it remains all on the local team, then it's another barrier
to
success. So I think to answer your original question, the feedback is extremely positive. The very smooth transition with Carrot and Progeny, I mean, it's rolling. We have a quarterly review with each of them, say what's going on, reviewing the costs, reviewing the feedback. Because again, we don't know, it's so anonymous. We don't know who's doing that, but the feedback is anonymized and we make some improvement. I now have one person dedicated centrally to manage that program, because again, it's not just, it's out of the door.
Yeah, it's never, it's always ongoing. It doesn't end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's part of the cost, but again, I know it's easy for me to say, the finance guys listening to me were like, yeah. Don't look at it as a cost. Look at it as an investment on your engagement, on your retention, as I was saying, and potentially on your attraction. That's something we are selling to our candidates. And candidates are like, oh, wow. And again, not just because they want to build family. Some of them have their family, or some of them don't want to build a family. But when you have such a powerful message, people say, wow, it has to be a good enough company. If they do that, it can't be that bad. So look at the investment that you would make on an employee value proposition or marketing campaign. It's worth every penny of it. I mean,
yeah,
I'm selling now. But,
no, it's fine. You're not selling. You're passionate, right? Like you've been working, and both of us have been working in this space for a long time, and we've come so far. Like, and we could only dream of having things like this right in the past. How does it make you feel as a HR leader
the team laugh. I mean, in a town hall, I'm always the one passionate about things, because yesterday we just launched a new online platform, learning platform. It's the first time in the company, so I've got the good role, I think, in the executive committee. But I was like a kid at Christmas. I couldn't keep smiling, and people said, "Oh, you share the passion." But I'm like, what is it not to love? And the pride that I had, and the luck, I feel extremely lucky because our company can afford it.
Yeah.
And my peers at the executive committee, our president, is fully supportive. So I'm the lucky one here, because I'm sure there's plenty of other talented CHRO,
I speak to them every day.
Who'd love to do it, who can't.
Yeah. No.
I feel lucky, and I'm milking the groovy train, to make sure we use that investment the best possible way, but not for HR. I mean, I feel lucky now as a head of HR. I feel lucky as a leader in our organization that can offer that to our employees.
That's great to hear. Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Just had a random question pop into my head. Like, what are you seeing as the main sort of benefits that are being utilized when you you mentioned you sit down with Carrot and sit down with the other organization and talk about, measure, like, what are the areas that are being utilized the most?
So there has been so far, I mean, it's 9 months. So we ask again in a year, maybe we'll get a better trend. But for sure, fertility treatment by far.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. We had some surrogacy, we had some adoptions, but in particular in countries where, I'm French, I come from France, and the French government is covering, but the French government has these family friendly, they need babies, so they're paying so you don't pay anything. But I've got a relative in Ireland or in England, and they had to pay themselves, and that they had to make the choice between redoing their kitchen or buying a house or doing a fertility treatment. I mean,
yeah, it's heartbreaking.
Our employees don't need to have that choice anymore. And a lot of people have said to me, and I was like, that's when I get teary. Now that's where I'm like, oh, okay, it's worth the head banging moments to be here, because I get emails, people say, thank you, because I failed 3 times, and my husband has said, we can't afford to try another time. Now I will. Thank you. Wow. And you have me forever. And they might leave in 5 years' time. I don't know. But wow. I mean, I'm not a brain surgeon. But this is when purpose and mission of a company comes to life. And you talk about the war of talent, what the new or young generation, I think COVID changed a lot of things, good and bad. And for me, it's a catalyst, good and bad. And one of the biggest catalysts in my view, and you can argue there's plenty, but personally, I see people have realized, and not just young people, even people my age and older, say, look, do I want to be in that mad race? Earning money is a good thing, but I want to earn it in a meaningful way. So we all know purpose, mission is true, not just with the newer, younger generation. That's clear. But even with the not so young generation that might not have that, because COVID forced us to pause for a while. And having that mission, that purpose, and in any company can have one. Again, I'm lucky. We make babies, we save lives. Hey, that's,
it's a pretty good one.
It can be more difficult.
Yeah.
But it's living that mission, that purpose every day. Because I worked for other organizations that had great mission, great vision. And I'll tell you, without naming them, that they didn't live it every day. I definitely suffered as employee, and you think, okay, that's great what they have in their brochure. So in some ways, it goes back to one of your questions. What are we doing? Are we doing enough to communicate? No. But I am a lot prouder, and I think it's a lot more impactful, that we might not have many glossy brochure and great video everywhere, but we live our mission every day. And yes, we're still a best kept secret, maybe less of a secret than it used to be, and hopefully be well known. But if I had to choose between a I don't know, superficial LinkedIn glossy, we are the best, versus what truly people experience, authentic. As a head of HR, I know which one I would choose, and I know which one I choose every single day, which is here.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Sorry to be so blunt, but
no, I think we can all relate to that. I think we've all worked in companies where, you see this sort of external facing voice and media, and you're like, wait a minute, we're not even doing that internally in our organization, no. Right? And it's very, and those talented people leave just as fast as they come in. They come into those organizations faster. Yeah. And they're like, wait a minute, this is not what I signed up for. This isn't what, was advertised, as it were. And they leave as well. Whereas the opposite effect happens in organizations like yours, right? They're like, oh, wow, I want to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't have talent acquisition function when I joined 2 years ago. We now have one, and they are outstanding. They're great. And they are doing a great job to bringing talent in. But we're actually spending a lot more time and money and energy on the learning and development. And it's early in the journey. So again, we're far from perfect. But we're making improvement, because for me, it's like, at least let's make sure we keep and grow those we have. And okay, we will be still the best secret, but as long as those who have discovered that secret stay with us and help us be successful, then maybe they'll make noise and then it will come. We're still small, 2.2 billion, and growing, but still.
It's just another demonstration of your investment in the people, right? Along that journey, like you mentioned, you just kicked that off. Who did you? I'm always interested in these things. Like, who did you partner with on the learning side? Who did you partner with?
So we've created our own. So nothing unusual. We created our own platform because, again, like many organizations, we had loads of different offerings. It's like the internet. Yeah. It's on the internet. So it's on the intranet. So we kind of all put it together. But because we recognize also we need to deliver a personalized learning experience. Therefore, we need to integrate other resources. So we're partnering with LinkedIn Learning.
Oh, nice.
It's nothing unusual, but they're providing, access to a lot of courses and videos, and I'm not paid by them. So it's not a sponsored call here.
No worries.
But we're working with them because, again, it's back to being employer of choice. We aim to provide personal and professional growth. So people can, they can have courses and videos with something that's nothing to do with their day job here. But we believe that if they are happy and they grow, maybe they'll bring the skills somewhere else and hopefully stay also with us. So
LinkedIn Learning is great. I've never really heard anyone say a bad thing about LinkedIn Learning. And as you said, it gives people the opportunity and also the experience. The user experience is really good of it. Yeah. And also they can explore any number of topics, like you said, or areas to keep them engaged.
We've got Cornerstone as well. We've got others, but in terms of like having access, we paid a license with them, and therefore, it's kind of because we want to really push that self-serving a little bit. Of course, we are launching these big corporate program, which most companies have of a reasonable size, which we didn't. So that's new for us. But it's also the horse has to come to the water. We'll bring the water in fresh.
That's
and
true.
Drink
You've got to take charge of their own learning. Yeah, that's true. You can't say, hey, we want to be we want to grow and be developed and then not take initiative themselves of their own learning as well. So there's got to be, you got to meet in the middle. But listen, we need to do like part 2 about the learning journey, because I feel like we can talk for hours otherwise. But
and people will be asleep soon.
I told you we were going to do our quick fire round, so let's jump into that before we jump. So before I let you go, you got 30 seconds per question. Are you ready? Yeah?
Steady.
Let's go. What are your hobbies and passions outside the office?
My family, my friends. I like a nice glass of wine. Spending time with my passion. Yeah, spending time with those I love, which I don't do enough. So
no, love that one. If you could click your fingers and change one thing about HR, what would you change?
The name, potentially, because we're business leaders, and now because I love my function, but we're not valued at where we are. So being really considered fully everywhere as the business, and maybe it's the name to change. I don't know. Yeah, I know. I agree. How would your family and friends describe what you do for a living? What do you think they would say? I have no clue what Mum does. Mummy, what's your job? Firing and hiring people. My husband, I think, knows a little bit. He's in corporate. He's an IT executive, so I think he knows more. But I think it's still a mystery for my family. Yeah, love it. Hiring and firing people is probably the... Yeah, unfortunately, that's talking about, we need a rebrand, right, of HR, because that, unfortunately, is the common answer as well. I tell them, I make people happy, but I hear you often, you say you're sacking people. I'm like, no, I'm not sacking people, darling, but anyway. Yeah, no worries. It's the same for everyone. Exactly. Have you ever considered a career outside of HR? Well, actually, I started my career outside of HR. Believe it or not, I'm a biochemist. So I worked as a project manager. I studied HIV inhibitors, but that was in a previous life. Okay. And I moved to marketing. So actually, I started in marketing before my moving into HR through headhunting. So I had a life before HR. You had a life before HR. The way you said that. No, exactly. So no, actually, it's funny because sometimes people said, "Oh, so you're not really HR," and I think now is a good thing. That's why I said it shouldn't be a good thing. I'm really delighted to be HR. I think some of them probably think, "Where did she go wrong? Oh, she's gone downhill." Yeah, because you know what's funny? That they put her in HR. That happens all the time. Like I speak to so many HR leaders, and like when they first get tapped on the shoulder to say, "Hey, would you consider this?" They see it as like a step down from where they are. And they don't realize that. It's actually quite a common thing. But I'm proud. You know, of proud HR. To be HR leader. I'm carrying the thing with pride. Love it. What would you say is the biggest investment you've made in yourself? That's had the most impact? That's a very good question. I think trying to spend more time with myself. And that's pathetic, but something I started doing. Invest enough time, because I realized recently, you run at work all the time, and I was spending far too much time running HR and not being an executive, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I was running at home, so I felt a bad executive, a bad wife, a bad mom. You could Google there. All of them will say, "No, you're okay," but I kind of trying to give myself the gift of time, which I'm still working on, Chris. So please don't reach out and say, "How do you do it?" I'm actually trying so much to that. To have me time. It's hard. I relate to that so much. Like the first part you mentioned, you end up being like my coach always says, Chris, you're working in the business, not on the business. And making that time to just have some space to think and just reflect and just. For me, that's when I'm working out or going for a walk and just separating. Yeah. Is the hardest, because all of us know it's like, I didn't have time. No, I didn't take the time. But on the other side, is the easiest. It's free. It doesn't cost anything, and you can do it. And it's saying no. Yeah. But that's probably the best thing I can think of like that. You told me 30 seconds. That's the best I can come up with. No, it was great. It was great. It was great. Who's one person that's had the biggest impact on your career? I'll say two persons. First is my dad, my dear dad, not there because he influenced me in my whole life. So I think how I am, who I am, that's him. And the one person I want to thank is Caroline Luscombe, CHRO of Sanofi, Aventis, Lafarge, Syngenta, loads of big company, because she's the only HR leader who believed in me. I had great other business leaders who have given me the career because they say, Christelle, you're not an HR. And in their mouth, there was a compliment. And they have positioned me. But as a HR, I think I've learned a lot from her. She's an outstanding leader, but she's also an outstanding human being. And she showed me you can be a leader and still be a nice person, which I was starting to doubt. And she showed me the light. So that's, if I have to pick one professional person, that would be her.
That's amazing. Shout out to her.
When I grow old, I want to be her one day.
Love that. And then last question, especially in the last, the role of HR is, and the role of work in general, and how work's done, it is dramatically changed over the last couple of years. And what it means to be a CHRO, I think, has also changed over the last couple of years and will continue to change. So what advice would you give to those HR leaders of tomorrow that are going to be sitting in your seat one day?
Loads of things. But if I have to be quick, I'd say be a business leader, not an HR leader. If you've got kind of come from that perspective, I think that's really important. And back to what I just said, I think be an executive as much as, I don't want to say more, but at least as much as you running your functions, because I think you need to keep that head. I think the CHRO have a much bigger role. I think the other leaders, they run their function. We have a duty as CHRO to really play that glue to the executive committee, to help on the people side, to help them work as a team, which, other leaders all have that, but we have a duty of, I believe, so is to be more than just CHRO, and keep enjoying it. It's fun and be proud. Seriously, I think 20, 30 years ago, maybe HR was a dirty word. I think now we are more and more recognized as a business function. So wear the badge with pride.
Own it. Yeah. No, I love it. Well, listen, thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoyed it, the conversation.
And Chris.
Congrats again to you and the team for all the amazing work that you're doing.
And thanks for your interest in Ferring. And look, again, everything I've said and done, it's my team. I'm the luckiest because I've got the best team in HR in the whole industry. Yeah. So and they make me look good. I only have one talent, is to hire good people. So they make me look good.
Yeah. And you need to get like a t-shirt that says Ferring, the best kept secret.
Exactly. You know what? I might do that, Chris. My next HR meeting, I might do that and send it to all my team around the world.
Well, listen, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you soon. And
thanks a million. Really appreciate the time and the interest. Bye, Chris.